Good evening, and welcome to the regular meeting of the Council of the City of Long Beach, held Tuesday, April 19th, 2022 at 7 p.m. We'll have a roll call. Councilmember Posteri.
Present.
Councilmember Lester.
Here.
Councilmember Bendo.
Present.
Vice President Treston.
Here.
President McGinnis.
Present.
Let the record indicate the presence of City Manager Donna Gaden and Corporation Counsel Richard Berrios. We'll now have a salute to the flag.
City Manager Gaden, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're going to go this first. Okay. Good evening, everyone, to the second meeting of April of the Long Beach City Council. First, I want to make a very important announcement and wish the Long Beach editor, James Bernstein, a happy birthday. And now, Vice President Treston, would you please provide your report?
Sure. Thank you, everyone, for coming this evening. Just a reminder that it is Earth Week, and there are some upcoming events that our community should be aware of. Surfrider will be having their cleanup at the canal on Saturday the 23rd. The city will be having a shredding event and e-cycling from 9 to 1 on Sunday behind City Hall. There'll also be recycle pails for sale. I also want to take a moment to thank you to the past City Council for banning plastic bags and for making it illegal, for lack of a better word, for intentional balloon usage, the banning. And I know that you love this city. I see you cleaning up and picking up after others, as do others, and we appreciate all that you do. Also for note, April 13th, 1922, the New York State Governor signed a bill making Long Beach a city. At noon on June 1st, 1922, the City of Long Beach officially began operating. So please visit our website at longbeachny.gov/centennial for all upcoming events. And thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'll hand it over to City Manager Gaden for the City Manager's report.
Thank you. The very first item we have today is that through our CDBG grant that we have been talking about for a while, we have a total of 4 nonprofit organizations that was given money that was never dispersed. So we're going to disperse that money tonight. One of the 4 will not be here. They will be at a future meeting. And so can I have the representative for the MLK? MLK will receive $10,000. And the $10,000 is for a program that they will run Monday through Friday from 5 to 8, where youth will participate in 3 daily activities, including peer-to-peer mentoring, home economics, arts, and STEAM. Congratulations. Oh. Wait, don't go.
Oh. You sure? I know what you did.
Can I have Long Beach, someone, the representative from Long Beach Reach?
And Haverman?
Long Beach Reach will receive $10,000. The description for their program is Substance Mental Services Funds will address the needs for outpatient intensive chemical dependency treatment services, including case management and therapy by funding of a portion of a staff's salary. Yours is $10,000 as well. And the last one tonight is the soup kitchen. If the representatives for the soup kitchen will come up. The soup kitchen will receive $10,000. And these funds will be used to provide fresh produce to 100% of the meals served at the soup kitchen, including food and garden and paper supplies. Thank you. This is just one of the ways that when we apply for grants for CDBG, we are honored to pass out these grants. Our next presentation will be from O'Melveny and M3 to talk about our Haverman settlement.
Thank you. I'm Maria DeConza from O'Melveny and Myers, and with me is Brian Griffith from M3 Partners. Get even closer. We're here tonight. If we could move the slides forward. When we were last here virtually on December 28th, the City Council voted on a letter of intent which set forth the terms of a proposed settlement of the Haverman litigation that has been pending for 3 decades. As we explained then, on May 17th, 2021, the court entered a judgment against the city for over $140 million, with 9% judgment interest until paid, which amounted to approximately $1 million a month while that judgment remained outstanding. In addition, the court issued in the judgment allotted the Habermans certain zoning that would have allowed them to build a project in accordance with zoning that was granted to them in the 80s pursuant to certain settlements. The City Council, the City Manager, and Corporation Council, along with their outside advisors, me from O'Melveny, and my firm, and M3 Partners, negotiated that letter of intent, which was authorized by the City Council on December 28th. We're very pleased to be here tonight with the formal agreement that was contemplated under that letter of intent, which the advisors and the Haberman parties reached agreement on last week. On the next slide, please. The material terms of the formal agreement are the same as those that were set forth in the letter of intent. The major components of the settlement is that the city will pay $75 million to settle the judgment, which as of December 28th, when we entered into the LOI, already amounted to almost $150 million. So this is basically a 50% discount off the settlement as it was at the end of the year. Under the letter of intent, the parties agreed that interest would not accrue while we tried to negotiate this agreement. And again, under the agreement, that interest stopped on December 28th, and we now have a formal agreement. So the city will pay $75 million. There's an additional $2 million credit that the Habermans have towards certain zoning benefits that we will talk about a little later. If those buildings are not built, then that amount is forgiven. And then there's an additional penalty if the city revokes the zoning that's required or does something to interfere with the project after this agreement is entered into. The other material term of the agreement is that it does contemplate the city entering into zoning amendments. Those zoning amendments will be subject to a future city council meeting with the city plan, or the planning and zoning consultant that for the city will present that zoning legislation to the city. But a draft of it is attached to the formal agreement. All of that is posted on the website. And so the city would enact that zoning and a community benefit bonus policy, which would allow for 2 13.5-story buildings and a parking garage, which is basically under the judgment and the old zoning. They were entitled to build 2 10-story buildings and a 7-story building. So this new agreement really just moves those 7 stories from the north side to the south side. It's the same amount of density that was in the zoning that the judgment found they were entitled to. The formal agreement becomes effective when it's signed by all the parties. So if the city council approves the formal agreement tonight, then the city manager would be authorized to sign the agreement. And then the city, it's contingent on the city raising sufficient funds to pay the settlement. And then the zoning being enacted and the community benefit bonus policy being enacted, the parties agreeing to delivering satisfactions of judgment and withdrawals of the appeals to move forward, and it does need to be so ordered by the court that was pending, the judgment is pending before. We have the next slide. So the city would pay for the settlement through the issuance of general obligation bonds. Two things that have happened that are extremely positive for the impact of this judgment on the city. The first, as CMA presented at the last city council meeting, is that Moody's Investor Service has actually upgraded the city's credit rating from a Baa3 with a negative outlook to a Baa3 with a positive outlook. That will help the city when they go out to market to sell the bonds to pay this judgment. And it's important that one of the major reasons that Moody's upgraded the city was because of this settlement. Moody's views this settlement as a positive for the city moving forward. Also, last week, on April 9th, New York State enacted legislation that allows the city the flexibility to issue longer-term bonds than are otherwise allowed under New York law. Under New York law, the bonds would have to be a maximum of 15 years. New York State enacted legislation that allows that to be for 30 years if the city determines that that's the best length for the bonds going forward. They also authorized the city to use an underwriting process or a negotiated process, again, so the city could get the best value in issuing these bonds out to the market. That process will take place once this agreement is authorized. It's too soon to know exactly what the pricing of those bonds will be and what the impact of it will be, but the city will work with its advisors, with its municipal advisor, CMA, with M3, with its bond counsel to ensure the best possible outcome in selling these bonds to pay the judgment. Could we move to the next slide? As I mentioned, effectiveness of the agreement is contingent on legislation being enacted. The city worked with the city's planning and zoning consultant to draft legislation that's appropriate for the city of Long Beach. It contemplates extending the current residential business A district eastward to Lincoln Boulevard, and then there are certain modifications to the residential business A district to work for the project so that what the city is agreeing to in the formal agreement can be accomplished under the zoning. There is also a contemplated community benefit bonus policy. This was something that, again, the city's planning and zoning consultant helped draft for the city. It is based off of similar policies that are enacted by other New York State jurisdictions. And it allows for builders to get a bonus off of certain zoning by contributing to the community. Again, the approval of the revised zoning and the community benefit policy will be the subject of a future meeting where the city's planning and zoning consultant will be here to present that to the council. Next slide, please. I think that might be the last slide. So that's an overview of the agreement. Again, the full agreement was posted online as well as the contemplated zoning associated with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria. Okay. At this time, does the council have any questions regarding Maria's presentation? Mr. Lester?
Maria, just first of all, you guys can hear me. Thank you for getting us a settlement. But I do, 75 million is a lot, but listen, it's probably the best we could do. So no bitch about that. But I just want to make a couple of things clear. When it comes to the building and the zoning, you said if the city does something wrong. The way the stipulation reads, if anybody sues, anybody, and the city can be completely innocent and do everything that they can to try to make it work, and if anybody sues and wins, we're liable for the 25 million. That's the case, and I just want people to understand that. Because, you know, when you say if the city does something wrong, it's more than that. That's number one. Number two, I guess the zoning is something that really bothers me. What it will basically allow, and I understand we can be able to build these, you know, 14-story buildings plus, you know, it's 14 plus the level, you know, the additional 11 or 17 feet plus stuff like that. People don't understand that right now. And listen, I know you put the entire agreement on the website, but I think it's 143 pages you put on, something like that, with all the, you know, people aren't going to read that. So I just want that part understood too, because that is something, you know, it's one thing to pay money, and it's another thing when you're changing a character of a town. And, you know, it's something that we never really have been in favor of, great big buildings. But anyway, like I said, it is what it is. So I just want it understood. Thank you.
Sure. Just to address those 2 points. One, you are correct that if somebody challenges the zoning legislation and it is found to be improper, if the zoning legislation is voided, then the penalty is applicable in that instance if the city is not able to cure it, to basically revise it in a way that isn't subject to challenge. And then as far as the zoning is concerned, again, I do think there will be, I know there will be a fulsome presentation on exactly what this zoning does. This was a very hard-fought negotiation that lasted, at this point, basically a year, and it did involve give and take on all sides. The zoning is in exchange for not having to pay the other $75 million. So, you know, if you add 75 and 75, you get 150, which is, we'd be well over 150 at this point.
Any other questions from the council? I just have a brief statement. Did you have something to say? Okay. This is regarding the Haverman settlement. This is a bittersweet day for Long Beach. I'm so thankful to Senator Kaminsky, City Manager Gaydon, Corporation Counsel Barrios, Comptroller Resnick, and the O'Melveny team and our lead, Maria DeCanza, and the M3 team lead by Mo Mahey and Brian Griffith, and of those past and present that helped pull this deal together. Long Beach will always be grateful to you. I'm also sad. The residents of Long Beach are going to be saddled with this debt for up to the next 30 years. In 30 years, I'll be 81. People that are 5, 10, 15 years old right now that want to live in Long Beach, when they grow up, are going to be paying this debt off for something that happened for years before they're born. It's a cautionary tale for all of us. And finally, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that we have addressed this situation head on and are closing this painful chapter in our history. All right.
Can I just say something quick? Sorry, I wasn't. Look, I think there's something people just need to understand. None of us up here are happy that we have to vote on this. Not that we don't want to settle it, but the fact that we have to vote for this amount of money for something that happened over 30 years ago. This is something no one sitting up here did. People in this room probably weren't even thinking about this 30 years ago, didn't even know what was going on. But one of the things we said when this administration came in is we weren't going to kick the can down the road anymore. Because kicking the can down the road turned this city into a financial mess. Somebody finally had to deal with these problems. And this is what we did. It's not a pretty solution. Unfortunately, it's one we're all going to be paying for a long time. But this is something that happened 32 years ago that we're cleaning up now. And that's what we said we were going to do. We said we were going to clean this stuff up. We got the super block out of purgatory, and we cut the city's financial score in half. We went from being the #1 financially distressed municipality in the entire state 2 years ago to we're falling off the list now.
110.
And that's what happens when you don't kick the can down the road and you take responsibility and you fix the problems. And that's what we're doing here. It's not pretty. Nobody here likes it. You're not going to like it. But this is a problem that had to be fixed. Because, quite frankly, you shouldn't be stuck. Well, it's already going to be stuck on your children and your grandchildren, quite frankly. But even beyond that, this had to be fixed. And that's what we're doing tonight.
Hopefully. All right, thank you. Thank you, Councilman Benda.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Dave?
Okay, on to the public hearing. Oh, and as I announced earlier, an item has been added to the agenda by unanimous consent. The item is on the side of the room. So our public hearing is an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Long Beach regarding Ocean Beach Park.
Okay. Comptroller Resnick?
Before we start the hearing, I'd like to propose an amendment. I would like to add a category of a late afternoon pass. I don't have the exact verbiage for you, but beginning at 4 p.m. for a fee of $6.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Now, before we... So starting at 4 p.m.,
Get in the microphone.
starting at 4 p.m., day pass admission for $6. Now, before we vote, I would like to discuss the amendment, which is the process. After it's seconded, there's discussion before the vote.
Okay, I just had a procedural question, now I'm talking to council.
Okay.
Okay,
that's
1
fine.
minute.
Well, I'll tell you what, while they're mumbling, I'll give you a brief summary of why I'm proposing this amendment. It's been seconded. So, for several years now, anybody that goes down on the boardwalk at a few minutes before 6 knows there's crowds of people waiting on the boardwalk. They get on the beach when the lifeguards go off at 6 and we stop charging for beach passes. So now what we have is we have large crowds of people coming on the beach when the lifeguards are going off the beach. Creates an unsafe condition. I've been with the chief of the lifeguards driving up and down the beach, shooing people out of the water after 6 o'clock. The idea here is that for people who come down late in the day and are waiting because, quite frankly, they don't want to spend $15, they get on for a daily pass, they get on the beach late in the day. This affords people the opportunity to come on late in the day at a lower fee and potentially then have lifeguard protection when they're on the beach. This is not going to be included in the budget because this is kind of an experiment, so we don't know what revenue it might bring in. So it doesn't impact the budget in any way, except that if we do sell more, I guess it's an added bonus. So that is why I'm proposing it. And I'm going to kind of lean around and ask the Commissioner of Parks just a quick question. If we do vote to do this, and it's included, can the ticket takers keep track starting at that time of what tickets are? We'd still use the daily, it's the same passes, unless you think you have to have something different. Okay, so there's my question. Can this be done? Can you do this?
I don't know right now.
Okay. So we could always pull it out if we have to.
It would have to be a different pass.
Okay.
Could it just be a situation where it would be offered for and you'd have to have availability for cash or for card instead of doing a separate pass for folks?
That's something that we actually will have to look into, how that we can get that done. It will have to be a separate pass, so we will take that under advisement. The team will come together and see what is the best way for us to get that resolved for the 4 to 6 time frame at $6, and how to ensure that we capture the dollars that we receive. So we do a cost-benefit analysis. So that's not a question that we can answer right now. We will look into it and get back to the council at the next meeting.
Okay, well, it's not,
Yeah.
we haven't voted yet, so it's
Right.
not in there yet.
Yeah,
But,
so we will look into it.
Anyone else on the council have any comments on the motion?
John, I want to thank you for thinking outside of the box. It's not a new idea. You've brought it up before, but now we're moving on it. You know, I can't see this being complicated at all, doing it. You know, I know Jones Beach has done it and other places have done it. And you know what, the fact is that we have ideas. You have other ideas that you brought up that haven't been implemented. And you know, the only way we're ever going to get anything done is by taking the action that you've done today. So thank you.
thanks. Like I said, I view it as a safety issue. You know, we want people to be swimming when there's lifeguards on duty, not waiting until after they're gone. So,
Well, John, what I want to do is, I just heard what Councilmember Lester said. You came up with several ideas during the budget process. It's not that we did not implement those ideas. We don't know for sure how well those ideas will work. Therefore, we did not include them in the budget, but that does not mean that we will not try them, including parking at the garage and a purchase of possibly 2 tickets. It just is not reflected in the budget because this administration, this staff, this executive team, we no longer do aggressive budgeting. We no longer put things in the budget that we have no idea on the type of revenue that it will generate. So I want everybody in the audience to know, as well as the council to know, that every idea we heard, we talk about it, we talk about how to get it implemented, and then that is a trial to see if, in fact, it will increase revenue, which would be good for us, but we did not and we will not include it in the budget. So I want everybody to know we heard all of the ideas.
At this
There's a
time,
motion on the floor.
the motion on the floor. We're still working on procedural issues. We're real-time checking out the code to see if this motion can actually be voted on.
We're good.
So we need specific language for the amendment, please, Mr.
okay.
Councilman Bendo.
Let me go to the,
And for the clerk's information, the amendment would be Section 1, Chapter 18, Article 2, Division 2, Section 18-30, creating a new sub 18-30B2D to insert language soon to come.
yeah, unfortunately, I don't have the code open in front of me.
We're looking for the language.
So wherever it's appropriate in the long list in the code, daily passes beginning at 4 p.m. for a cost of $6,
7 days a week.
7 days a week. Yes, same price.
Can I make it, can I suggest it $7?
If you want to propose an amendment to the amendment, we can vote on that.
I'm good.
Well, hold on, we're still on the First Amendment. Okay.
We're discussing it, we can agree on the amendment before we even have to propose a new amendment.
Well, we have to, I just want to make sure that Corporation Counsel is comfortable with the language, the exact language of the amendment, so I want to give him a minute. He's certainly typing faster than I ever type.
So it'd be in section 1830.
Yeah, section 1830, subsection B, subsection 2, and then we'd be adding D to that. It's the last section under,
Okay, I don't have that.
that's under
That's the next page.
daily admission charges.
Commissioner Brand? What time do ticket takers leave the post? What time do ticket takers leave the post?
6 p.m.
But
Oh, there it
our council, well, you know, this goes into the whole amendment, because I don't know if ticket takers, are they paid on, you know, to the minute or quarterly, or?
They pay till
They
6.
pay till 6.
So what if they work till 6:02?
It wouldn't impact.
Impact.
It's the same hours, yeah.
So would this be what? Section 1830, subsection
B,
B, subsection?
2,
And
D.
then we'd be adding D.
D.
We'd be adding D.
All right, I think I have.
Okay, you want to read it back?
So I'm titling it or putting a heading of Twilight Daily Passes.
That's a good one, yeah.
That's good,
All right,
yeah.
a little creative liberty. Commencing at 4 p.m., 7 days per week during the Ocean Beach Park season, residents and non-residents shall pay a $6 admission fee for entry onto the Ocean Beach Park during, period, full stop.
Okay.
Okay.
Do I have a second?
I think I
Tina
second.
seconded.
Okay. Voting. Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester. Yes. Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
President Treston.
Yes.
Vice President McGinnis.
No.
Okay, continue.
Yeah. President, vice president, you reversed them.
Did
We're interchangeable, don't worry.
We're the same.
I'm sorry, it's been a long.
So now we start the hearing, right? And
Yes.
Ina's presentation. I just also want to make clear that the council will not be voting on the complete item this evening. That, we will be voting on this item at another meeting.
And we'll need a motion to table.
Yes. So we will not be voting on beach pass rates this evening.
You all have the slides in front of you.
Right, thank you.
Yes.
Good evening. This is just another presentation on Beach Park, Ocean Beach Park revenue. And it's a short presentation. It's really designed to address those questions that were brought up during our discussions back in December, back in March, questions asked. And hopefully this will answer a lot of questions that people had. Dave, next slide. So, City of Long Beach Ocean Park revenue for summer 2021. Dave, can you go back to the, this is a wrong presentation.
This was the one I was,
The one that I sent to you that starts with pie chart,
that's,
April 2022.
yeah, that's, this one says with pie chart. This is the one I took out of the email that you sent me this morning.
Yeah. Can you plug that in?
It's
Okay.
at the end.
Oh, this one is, yeah, February 10th.
Would you be able to pull it up on your computer now if I'll resend it to you?
Sure.
Okay, give me a sec.
Yeah, she sent it yesterday afternoon. It says with pie charts.
Yeah, that's the one I have. That's, it says with pie chart. That's the one I
Can you
just did.
scroll to the end of the presentation to show her the pie
Let's
charts?
see.
Yeah,
Well,
I got
just
pie
closed
chart.
it.
No, well, we just want to make sure Ina knows that they're at the end of the presentation. Exactly, that's why I want to make sure Ina knows that the pie charts are at the end of the presentation.
Come on, start. There we go.
You may have the right one.
That's why I want her to see the end of the presentation.
Right.
No, this one doesn't have pie charts. Yeah.
Then that's not the right presentation.
This is the one she sent me before.
If you look in the subject header or in the PDF, it says with pie charts in the
No,
name.
that's, and that's what this is named, with pie chart. So I don't know.
But I have pie charts.
Okay.
I have a PDF of it. Let me see.
Yeah, PDF.
There you go.
Yeah, the
Okay,
PDF
I
one
see
has it,
pie
but-
charts.
How am I going to get
Yeah.
this up on the screen? Hold on. It's not the PowerPoint one, so I got to,
Yeah.
give me a second.
Yep, this is-
Just resend it to you, Dave.
This doesn't have pie charts.
No, because that's the PowerPoint, this is a PDF.
I got to get it before the other screen.
You gotta put it in, you gotta open it.
Whose computer?
No.
No, I mean for the public.
Give me 1 second, guys.
It's okay, Dave, we're not going anywhere.
We're here for a while, Dave. Don't worry.
That's the same one as the PDF, yeah.
And order
that's
a
why.
Yeah, it's
Pizza.
a beautiful evening.
Yeah, you lost.
Yeah, not happening.
Nah. Oh, yeah. Is that what the issue is? Because it's PDF?
Did you get it? Did you get it? Are we there?
Yep.
Okay, let's start again.
Okay, so this is going to be a short presentation. And it will address those points that were brought up during our last meetings. Next page. Okay, so what was talked about was the revenue and why are we even questioning this prices for the beach park? We did it in December, we did it last month. Why are we doing that? Because if we're not properly calculating what beach park costs us, and if we're not collecting revenue to cover those expenses, that means that somebody else is footing the bill. And that somebody else is city residents. So it's not that not everybody is allowed on a beach, right, during the summer. So only those people that derive benefit from using the beach and its facilities should be really participating in sharing the cost. Next slide. So there were several good suggestions made about adding other revenue types or other pass types to whatever portfolio of passes we have, and one of them was just added today. There is really no way for us to reasonably and rationally anticipate what those revenue streams will bring. And because there is no reasonable way for that, we can really include it in the next year budget, but we all think in administration that those proposals are, majority of them are good proposals, and they at least should be tried, and we'll be able to evaluate, create a baseline, and see if the revenue that's generated for those new streams will be material enough to continue to include that in the fiscal year 2024 budget. Next slide, please. Okay, cost savings. Questions were also asked about the cost savings, and I just want to say that it's not that we suddenly realized that Beach Park costs us $1 million more than what we generate in revenues, and we sat around the table and started to figure out how to save on this. This administration really approaches cost savings strategically and comprehensively. We look at cost savings year-round. We compare our budget to actual on a monthly basis. And really to address cost savings is at the time that we negotiate collective bargaining agreements, that we're looking at the proposals and evaluating them and calculating the costs, and that's how we're approaching cost savings. So not in a haphazard manner where we're saying, well, we're going to just cut 10% and that's how we're going to make a budget. That's not going to make a budget. That might only create either unsanitary or unsafe conditions in an Ocean Beach Park. Next slide. So we discussed this probably more than once, that last summer, we didn't have an optimal weather. The weather was so bad that according to our Commissioner Brand, it really impacted the revenue we collected in summer of 2021. So while I don't have a crystal ball and I can tell you that it's going to be definitely better, I certainly hope that it's going to be better, but historically speaking, we could take an approach that it's going to be at least somewhat better, and we can anticipate conservatively 10% more of ticket sales this summer compared to last summer. That being said, we still need to raise prices in order to meet whatever it costs us to run the beach. It's approximately $5 million. And while some might ask, well, what's really allocated? Is this person working 20% on the beach, 80% in building maintenance? This estimate was prepared of $5 million, not using the book example of the cost accounting. It's an estimate that really allocates direct cost, but what goes into all departments' operations is the operations of administrative departments, and if we started to really allocate all the costs, and then the debt service, it would have been considerably more. So here, all the prices, I don't know if you could see them. There is no, probably not, so I can read them to you. I can't even see them from here. but I have a printout. Okay. So for the residential, resident individual, the price would go up from $70 to $85. For family, from $90 to $115. For resident senior, from $20 to $30. Child, from $25 to $30. Economy, from $100, will stay at $100. And the daily will stay at $12 as well. For the non-residents, we double up. So it's 100% more. So for the non-resident individual, it will go from 140 to 170. For family, non-resident family, from 180 to 230. For senior non-resident, from 40 to 60. Child, from 50 to 60. Economy will stay at 120. Non-resident daily will stay at $15. And
That's it.
we are also increasing access from 20 to 30 and military from 20 to 30 as well. And we will work with the hotels to bring up the total we collect from them to about $75,000. Next slide. So here, this slide really is a visual aid. It shows where the revenue comes from for the city. There is a saying I've heard when the robber was asked, why are you robbing the bank? That they said that that's where the money is, right? So that's where the money is, right? You probably can't see, you can probably only see the colors, but that big blue part of the pie is what we get from the residents. It's 73% of the total revenue for the city we get from the residents. Next slide. Okay, so this pie chart shows how the pie is split between different categories of the resident tickets. The resident family represents 92% of all the total resident revenues that we get. And then next slide. And that's how the revenue is broken for the non-residents. So this is about 40% each, 38% from non-resident family season passes, and 40% comes from non-resident daily. And the rest, also a considerable amount, 16%, comes from non-resident seniors. So I apologize that the slides are not the original slides, so that they're not showing, but hopefully you could tell the brown and the orange represent the non-resident daily and non-resident family, respectively. Next slide, Dee. So when we're talking about the different categories, they are abbreviated on that previous schedule that was presented, where it had all the categories and the volume of sales and the 2021 prices versus 2022 prices. So this explains what those categories mean. Why what? Why Nevada?
Rich, do you
Why
want to take
Nevada?
Nevada Avenue? Rich, can you take that question? The Nevada Avenue, so folks south of Beach Street get free passes from a long-standing agreement from many, many, many years ago.
That's essentially what it is. My understanding is there's a decades-old agreement back when I guess Nevada was cut in two. Dave, correct me if I'm wrong. Or you can elaborate, because it looks like you're ready to talk.
It was the settlement of a land dispute. The city annexed part of Nevada Street that was previously part of the town of Hempstead, and in consideration for the owners losing some of that land, this was an agreement that the city made at the time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Ina, that wraps it up?
That wraps it up.
All right, thank you very much.
Sure.
Really appreciate it. Okay, at this time, at the council, it's a hearing, so does the council have any questions regarding the item?
I just have a quick one for Ina. Ina, where in the pie chart, the railroads is at 0%. Can you just explain that?
Sure. Hi. Yes, so on the budget, in the city budget, railroads are budgeted separately from all the other categories. That's why they represent 0% from this. They're included as a category, but not for the dollar value, because dollars are budgeted in a different category on a city budget.
Okay.
And you will see when the budget is posted, we budgeted $126,000 for next year, which is the $75,000 that we budgeted last year, plus 52, I think that Commissioner Brown said that we can collect a little bit more.
Okay.
Do you have any other, Mr. Bendo?
Ina, the 10% better weather bump you assumed, was that based on last year's, 10% above last year's actuals or budget?
It was based on 10% actuals.
On the actuals?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Trustin?
I just want a clarification for what's in the slide where it says access. It just says for persons with a physical disability, but in the agenda item, it's correct. That access passes for persons with disabilities, not just limited to physical. It's just,
Okay.
I just want to be clarification on the slide.
Sure.
presentation.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes, please. Couple of things. When you say the 10% was over the budgeted amount, I mean,
Actual
the
amount.
actual amount, how far under the budgeted amount was the actual amount?
In terms of the sales per category,
Whatever the 10% applies to, which I think it applied to the money.
well, total revenue that we were short is about $1 million. Now,
From the budgeted?
from the budgeted.
Okay.
We're about $1.1 million short of the budget for
So are you saying
2022.
that the weather bump was only 100,000?
The weather bump is actually going to be, because not all the sales are represented equally, right? In the actual amount of revenue collected, you don't have the same amount of tickets sold per each category. So
Right.
actually, the better weather assumption calculates to about $300,000.
The weather cost us 300, and how much have we added back?
So
for the
we don't
weather?
know what weather cost us.
Nobody ever
last.
does.
Yes.
Not even the weather.
So last year, instead of $4 million for the period from July to Labor Day, we've anticipated to collect $4 million. We collected $3 million. A 10% bump on that is $300,000. The rest will have to come from the prices.
Okay, so we gave a 10% bump to what we collected, not the difference between what the actual and the budgeted.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I do have a few questions. Actually, I guess more than a few. I'm trying to figure out, you had given us a slide back on March 30th, Ocean Beach Park revenue. And you have various things in here. Is that the only things you count? I guess that's the only things you count for revenue for the Ocean Beach Park.
Which I have the presentation.
Actually,
Give me a second. You can tell me which slide you're looking at. There were
It's
multiple
page number
pages.
9.
I think the difference was about 100 to 200,000. in addition to pure beach pass revenue on
So
that
it's-
slide.
It's not the 300,000.
No.
The weather bump.
The weather bump is a solid assumption based on past history.
No. I'm just asking the amount of the weather bump. Ina said it was 300.
Right, across 2 fiscal years, but 1 summer, this 2022
One
summer.
That's all that we can.
That's all we can responsibly
Yes,
do.
yes. So we added 200,000 rather than 300. Is that correct? Ina said 3, you're saying 2.
No, there's other categories on that sheet.
No,
Yes.
I'm just asking the weather bump. The weather bump,
300, whatever Ina says is right.
300,000. Okay, thanks. Okay. So you have here the beach charges, of course. Then you have beach comfort, beach volleyball, and other beach revenue.
Yes,
That's it.
that's all it is on that slide,
So
yes.
what about the revenue we receive from the restaurants, or, the things like Riptides and Penna's Place and stuff like that? That's, 30, 40,000 each. And we have a
Yeah.
bunch of those. And the food trucks, that was about 8,000 each. And we had about 10 of the food trucks. And the food trucks are gone, even though we had a contract where we said that they would be able to be here this year. And they're not here this year. And why are they not here? Because of the super block. And yet, that's something where we gave them, what, a $50 million tax write-off? And they're not covering that? I mean, we lost our contract because of them. Tell me if I'm wrong on any of this.
Well, Mr. Lester, the contracts are technically expired. The right to renew
Yeah.
was ours and ours alone.
Yes.
We opted not to renew because there was really no space for them to be placed.
But we gave them an out. If we had renewed, wouldn't Ingram Bergman be responsible for that? Wouldn't they have had to? It was our space that they took. So if we had renewed, we would have had another $80,000.
Actually, correct me if I'm wrong, Ina, the space that Engel Berman is using where the former food trucks were is part of a credit agreement that we have with Engel Berman. So we are actually being paid by Engel Berman in another vehicle, i.e. credits.
So why
And-
wouldn't that be counted towards beach revenue? If we're getting paid money
Because
on something that we lost, why, because right now, let's be honest, we're talking about a 70% increase for the residents of the city of Long Beach on family passes over the 2 years. I mean, we've never had a 2-year bump like this, or at least not that I know of. And it went from $50, now it's going up to $85. That's a 70% increase. And now we're saying we're giving a big developer credits, and it's not counting towards the beach, so we're going to take it out of the pockets of the residents?
Okay, so what we need to understand is that the food trucks are not part of Beach Park. The lifeguards don't look after the food trucks. We have a contract with those, and they showed elsewhere in the budget.
Why?
Riptides, all of those vendors that have leases, that revenue shows within the budget.
But
And it's
not
in a
for-
different category within the budget. It is not part of the beach park.
But you could do
What
that-
is part of the beach park is that what benefits the residents as far as lifeguards on the beach, cleaning of the beach, sanitation on the beach. Everything that is included in Beach Park is actually the beach. And so where you're saying that if we include revenue that we've already accounted for in the budget, we just accounted for it in a different area because it is a different category. Beach Park is strictly what is done on the beach for the residents.
Okay, Donna,
If I
that's
can
not the...
add to that, I'm sorry, I also have to answer your question.
Yes.
So really your question has to do with the cost accounting.
Well,
And
what
there-
my question,
but-
I'm sorry, Gina, one second. What my question has to do with was we're talking about raising the rates for the residents. And I'm trying to figure out where all this money is going. And now I'm being told, well, that money, even though it's in the beach park, oh no, well, it's not on the sand, so we don't count. But don't we pay under beach maintenance for cleaning and repairing of the
I,
boardwalk?
I have an answer for that.
Yeah.
Okay? So again, it has to do with the cost accounting and the concept of direct and indirect revenue and direct and indirect costs. So if you want to have an analysis of all the indirect revenues, that would be the trucks, that would be the restaurants on the boardwalk, that would be everything else that we can allocate. Then we compare it to all the costs that are both direct and indirect. But mixing it in revenue, only applying direct and indirect, but for the costs to apply direct only, would create a false picture and would not really have a proper allocation.
Well, I don't see it creating a false picture. This is money earned in the beach park, you know? Now, the same token, you have the specials. You have the specials as something coming out of the beach, yet they're in the police budget. When the police, we have, I think, 450,000 in temporaries. Of that, we take 300,000 of the specials. They're in the police budget. So we're mixing when it's convenient, and we're not mixing when it's not. And you know what? But something that happens within the beach park, it just seems to me, well, correct me if I'm wrong, do we pay out of the beach maintenance for cleaning and repairing of the boardwalk?
Yeah. We do, but we have two departments that are employing city staff that work on beach maintenance as well as building maintenance.
Right, and we separate 900,000
And then
out of
we
that.
allocate based on whatever the head of those two departments had projected to be specifically for the beach. So I would say that no, that whatever is allocated from the beach maintenance towards the beach, it has to do specifically with the beach maintenance.
So you're telling me that, what is it? Hold on a second.
Well, while you're looking for that, I want to answer a question. You just made a comment that the specials are in the beach park as well as in the police budget. That is not correct.
I didn't say that, Ina.
The
Donna.
$300,000 that's in the beach park, those are the specials that work in the beach park. They just happen to report to the police department, but they're not counted twice.
Oh,
That's
so
what I just
I'm sorry.
understood. Yeah.
So, Commissioner Walsh, you have 450,000 worth of temporaries that are not specials? In your budget, you have temporaries of $450,000. And they're all separate, then they're not the specials.
Commissioner, could you please thank
That's
me?
inclusive of the summertime specials as well
That's
as
what
my
I just said.
part-time specials as well as
But
my-
Don is saying they're not.
They're not, no, they're included.
Well,
The
that's,
$300,000 that's in the beach park is included, it includes the $300,000 that they are allocated to the beach park. So they will not be allocated to the police department and the beach park. If in fact that they are in the police department, that is an error.
Well, that was the-
$300,000, let me finish. $300,000 that's in the beach park for specials, those are specials that are hired for the summer that works in the beach park. If he has $400,000 in his budget and $300,000 is for the beach park, that means that there should only be $100,000 within his budget because we are accounting for $300,000 in beach park. They're allocated just as we do beach maintenance to the work that they do.
yeah, that would be great, but last year, it was the same thing. 300,000 was allocated to the beach of the specials, and it was in Commissioner Walsh's budget. So, I mean, you know, what I'm trying to do is figure out a way that we don't have to charge our residents who pay enough taxes for the same beach that they've been using for years. A 70% increase, to me, is unbelievable. You know, I've looked at the different things that the city's charging. Nobody, none of our vendors, None of the people that use our property have to pay a 70% increase. Only the residents. It doesn't seem right to me. So I've been asking about why it costs almost $3 million to clean a beach. Now you're telling me it's just the beach, it's just the sand we're talking about, not the boardwalk, not anything else, not the repairs of the boardwalk. Is that right, Tommy?
I thought we discussed this at the various work sessions that we had before, and now we're going to change the entire revenue and expense
Wait a second,
model?
I've asked this question since day one.
I'm sorry,
if you
Roy.
look
I'm
at the-
sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't realize.
Right, if you look at the emails that I've sent, I've been asking about the costs. And to be honest, I've been asking about costs now for years, okay? Now, Tommy, is that right, that what is it?
That
Your
includes
cost
fringes.
is almost $3 million?
Yes, we do take care of the boardwalk and clean the beach,
That's what I thought.
and that also includes the fringe benefits.
Now, I understand it includes benefits, but I always thought that it did include the boardwalk. And the boardwalk is part of the beach park, by definition. So, it makes sense that it would include the boardwalk. But now we have people who are renting part of the boardwalk who benefit from that. People are using the boardwalk. We're paying for it. I don't get it. Why aren't those people, why doesn't that money go into the beach budget so we don't have to charge as much to the residents?
I can't really, in the context of this meeting, I can do a separate presentation on the cost accounting. Again, there are direct and indirect revenues and direct and indirect expenses. What I hear you're trying to do, you're trying to figure out all the population of the revenues, direct and indirect, and apply them to the Ocean Beach Park.
No.
The trucks, the restaurants, everything. But then on the cost side, you would like to take out all the expenses that don't pertain specifically to the, let's say for Thomas' department, there is a cleaning of the bathrooms.
Well,
so he would have to calculate how that number increases during the beach season versus.
Okay, so this is what we'll do. We'll take a look at it. We will take a look at it when we come back. We will look at putting everything within what you're saying, asking for, Roy, into the beach park. We will also look at how that affects the bottom line of the budget, and then we will discuss it.
All right, but
So we will take a look at that, and we will do exactly what you're asking so that all the residents understand that what is in the beach park was direct cost, indirect cost, and once we move those line items that is other areas in the budget, we will see how it impacts the budget as a whole.
I would like to see that too, Donna. I would like to see
I just
what
said
they,
that
yes.
we will take care of it, Roy.
Okay,
We
because
will
I've
take
been
care of it.
asking about the expenses. Now, a couple of other things. I'm looking at beach comfort, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Beach comfort, you collect $8,800. Beach comfort had a contract from 2000, I believe it's 2015, and it started out at $8,000. And it was with the 5% increase each year, compounded. So 5% increase each year over the years, we would be about $10,900 now, not $8,800. The same thing, you have another thing, surf schools and events. What events are we talking about?
Commissioner Brand, you want to mention what events there are?
Some of the beach events would include Michelle O'Neill, Fit Fest, and events that take place up on the beach and the boardwalk throughout the year.
So how much do we get for that?
Depending on what city resources.
Give me just rough.
I'm sorry?
A rough.
Each event is different. There's a use of facility fee,
No,
depending
I mean-
on whether it's during the peak summer season
Any
or off-peak.
guesstimate, anything?
Usually somewhere a few $1,000s for each event. Basically to cover, like if there's a fee associated for any police that's involved, a fee that's associated for a bathroom attendant to be on duty that day, a fee for recreation employees to transport material on and off the beach, similar, any city resources or manpower that's required, that's the responsibility of the event holder to reimburse the city for.
But, in order for you to come up with this number of 16,000 for the last 2 years, 3 years, actually, where did you come up with that number?
Most of them I've given to her. For like the Arts and Crafts Festival, I can give you a P&L for any one of those events for what we've charged those event holders for and what we've collected.
Okay, so we have the two surf schools and the events. Scudden pays $13,500. Elliott pays $3,500. That alone is $17,000. And here we have 16. So I'm looking at the contract. It's on the transparency portal. $13,500.
Not for the beach.
Yes, for the beach.
For their store on the boardwalk.
No, the store is $22,000. $22,000. It's a 7-year contract. Hasn't gone up. Doesn't go up 1 penny during the whole 7 years. Okay, I'm talking about the beach.
The beach is not the.
I have the contract here if you want to see it.
Okay. I would have to take a look at it.
All right,
But,
it's $13,500 for this year.
They have 2 locations, and for the beach, I think that's below that amount.
I'm just going by the contract. Elliott pays $3,500. That's $17,000. Looks like we're missing $1,000 right there, and then nothing for the events. All right, I guess when we go over all of these things, these are the things that I'm looking at, though. I'm looking at the volleyball. The volleyball in 2019 took in $194,000. This year you have it projected at $155,000, even though their cost per team has gone up by about 12%. And I think next year it goes up another $50. I don't understand how we would get a projection of that many fewer people, that's not very good English, but that fewer people playing volleyball. It's little things, and I guess like Donna said, you'll go over these things. But
These are actual revenues for the volleyball they pay in the beginning of the year. So this is for East fiscal year 22. We're not going to collect any more than $155,300. That's what we've collected, and that's what's in the books.
well, what is going wrong then?
The gentleman that runs the league might be making more money.
He what?
He might be having a higher gross margin. He might be pocketing the difference.
No, we get per team. We get per team. We don't, whatever he charges is not our business. We get per team.
So then the number of teams is a variable.
Well, that's
that
what I'm
changes.
wondering. Why would there be so fewer teams? Why would there be a 20?
They cut back because of COVID.
Because of COVID.
No, COVID is basically,
That actually is a question for Commissioner Brand. We, in the accounting department and in finance, we take the information that is given to us based on the events that they have. So, Commissioner Brand, would you like to answer that question, please?
Right. There was a $40,000 that was collected the second half of this fiscal year. Add the 155, and you're at the 195 that you referred to.
but that 155 is for the entire year for us, for the summer.
Right. Combine the two.
So we get another 40.
And the fees stayed the same, Roy, just because with the contract that we do have with the beach volleyball leagues, it was a 3-year contract. The first year that was supposed to take place was the year that the summer was shut down because of COVID. So what we did was we honored 2020 as their first year, so it remained the same. So you'll see the increase hopefully next year,
Okay.
provided they have
But we got the 40.
number of teams.
The
yes.
40 is good. All right. So we got something accomplished. All right. So I'll wait until I see these things. And like done, like you said, that way we can go over the actual costs, too. Tommy, I hate to put you, where'd Tommy go? He ran?
No, he's
Tommy,
sitting
don't
right
run.
there.
Hate to put you through that, Tommy. Oh, there you are. You're behind Joe. Behind the man. Okay.
Are there any other questions? Okay.
Just to circle back for a second, I think it's important to point out, I'm going to circle back to a theme I brought up earlier about having to make some tough decisions to fix some old wrongs. And while what Councilman Lest is talking about is all things that need to be looked at, the simple fact is, if it costs $1 to run the beach and you only take in 75 cents, that difference has to come from somewhere. Now, what Councilman Lest is talking about, it rightfully so, is looking at the monies that maybe you can reallocate that plug that hole. But then part of that problem you have to be careful of is if you move money from your right pocket to plug a hole in your left pocket, you just created a hole in your right pocket. So it's a cumulative effect that you have to look at. Because, yeah, you can reallocate money from one budget line to plug the beach line, but then you may create a budget shortfall in the line you moved the money from. So you have to look at it holistically and look at it as a whole. You can't look at the beach park in isolation. And the simple fact is, the math is showing, now again, looking at creative ways maybe to reallocate funds, but generally speaking, the simple fact is we spend more to run the beach than we take in beach revenue. That's an unpleasant fact of life and another one of those difficult things that we are faced with that we have to address. Now, here's the thing to think about. If you don't make that up in the beach fees, and remember, a lot of the beach fees are paid by non-residents that come here. If those non-residents don't help pay those beach fees, it's going into your taxes.
Our taxes.
Well, our taxes, that's true, because we pay them too. And we buy beach passes too. That money is coming either way, whether it's through beach fees or taxes. If you spend $1, you have to bring in $1. That's just basic accounting 101. So you have to keep that in mind. It is to the advantage of the residents of the city to have the non-residents who utilize our beach pay for that service. They are utilizing our beach. So they should be contributing to the beach cleaning and all the other beach expenses, the lifeguards. That's what the beach fees do. So again, keep in mind, if it's not covered through the beach fees, it's going to eventually get covered through your taxes. So,
John, if you noticed, I have not said a word about non-residents. I am only concerned, I was only elected by the residents of Long Beach. I am concerned about them. Now, I do have a question, though. The largest amount of tickets that we sell, the largest amount of non-resident dailies, we sell 81,000 tickets, okay? But we don't raise their prices. Now, why don't we raise the non-residents?
we don't raise the non-resident prices because it's already so high that the fear is they will go to Rockaway or they will go to Nickerson or Jones Beach, where you could pay by the carload and get in much cheaper.
John, we charge our residents $12 a day. We charge non-residents $15 a day.
Right.
You think $1 would make a difference?
First of all, if you look at how many resident daily passes we sell, it's very few.
Yes.
Everybody buys
Right.
the family pass, basically speaking. And so the concern is if you go above $15, that's going to make us non-competitive with other nearby beaches that people, you work at Jones Beach, you could pay by a carload and get in there
But you can park, too.
and you can park too.
That's a big thing.
And the other thing, and again, because I'm all about perspective, the thing to keep in mind is even if this increase goes through, so even if it goes through, a family pass is $1.42 a day. So for a family of 4, that's 35 cents per person. I would challenge anyone in this room to tell me what you can do for 35 cents for entertainment for an entire day.
John, I thought about that because I know that's your argument. You can do that with anything. You can take a nuclear submarine and take all the 100,000 parts and break it down and say, well, if you're paying for this part and it's only a few pennies a day, it's that argument still, everything, every drop goes into a bucket, okay?
You're
so
right.
the idea that's saying, well, it's only a cup of coffee, it's only this, it's only that,
But
John,
again,
it's money out of their pocket, and
it's money out of our pockets too. I buy beach passes. Everybody up here buys beach passes. It's out of all our pockets. But again,
but why not charge the non-residents more? Why not charge the family non-residents
because
more?
there was a court ruling.
Where? I looked for that. I did
know.
not find it.
You-
And John, the
you
fact
and
is
I-
that
you-
town of Hempstead charges 5 times the amount.
I think you and I have similar views
Yes.
on this one. There is a court ruling the city has used for decades. It's an old ruling that basically was interpreted to mean non-residents can't pay more than double what a resident pays. I looked at that case. I didn't interpret it that way, but that's the interpretation the city has been
Wait.
using for
Rich,
years.
that's your interpretation?
The case is it basically maintains a ratio, and the standard is shocking to the conscience.
Yes.
It said reasonable, a reasonable
But
difference.
somehow town of Hempstead manages to do 5 times the amount.
Doesn't mean what they're doing is correct.
But they're getting by with it.
I think, clearly we have work here to do as a
Correct.
council. I would like to hear from the public.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I
Yes.
can add one more thing to what John said, that if we will not be increasing the prices on the beach passes, $1 million increase in the property taxes would be approximately $90 per residence. So that there will be impact on residents one way or the other. If $1 million is not going to come from here, it will have to come from somewhere else, and that would be $90 per residence.
I understand that, but you're telling me, and I've said this before, with a $5.3 million budget, is that what it is? You can't find 1 penny to cut. Not 1 penny. I have not seen 1 penny cut yet.
Okay, so,
But like Donna said, you're going to look into that.
so the
All right.
81,000 tickets that are non-resident daily, that's 63.6% of the total number of tickets sold of 128,000. That 60% actually brings in 30% of the total revenue from last summer. So 60% of the actual ticket sales, but only 30% of the revenue.
I don't think it even brings in that much. 81,000 out of 4 million? It's not 30%.
81,000 tickets out of the total 128,000 tickets. Of the resident family passes, it's 22,000 tickets sold out of 128,000. Those 17.5% of that revenue, of the total revenue, is 2 million. So those tickets bring in 50% of the beach revenue we collected last summer. So for me, as a chief financial officer and a fiduciary, creative accounting, or opposing our controller to figure out creative accounting just doesn't really fly for me. So, I'm looking forward to your analysis and then the auditor's opinion of direct and indirect costs for the beach overall. At this time, I'd like to open up to the public. Mr. Flatt. Yes, please. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm almost afraid to speak after all that argument.
It's nice debate, Kathleen. It's not
Yes,
argument.
okay.
It's better than apathy.
Name for the record, please.
Kathleen O'Leary, Long Beach. Maybe I'm missing something, but I thought that the non-resident families were going to get raised in this plan. Am I right?
Yes.
Okay. What I see missing here is what you were just speaking about, which is the non-resident daily tickets. And it's not fair to compare a city beach with the state park. I gave you all analysis between town beach single-use fees, which were $20 to $30, both in this strip of land and in Suffolk County. So in my view, and I've had this view for decades, we have a beautiful thing here and we don't know how to sell it, okay? We have a beautiful beach. We've been put on the map by Sandy, first in a bad way, but then in a good way. So people want to come here. And I appreciated when I became a senior not paying the higher price. I could afford the increase last year, and I can afford it this year. Not all seniors and not all families will be able to do that. But if you go to the beach 10 times in a year, it comes down to $3 a visit, and you could stay as long as you want, basically. So I don't know how to explain it. It's like there was a song, it's in the way that you use it. I don't think we're using it right. You know, we're not using the beauty that we have here and marketing it. And I think the beach park, I know it's going to come out of our taxes if we don't have it pay for itself. So I think we should raise the non-resident family, the non-resident single tickets, and also the non-resident single tickets in conjunction with the railroad, with the MTA. That's a, you know, if you've ever seen a train come in, you can't even drive down the street. You got like 50 people to 100 coming off each train. So I think, you know, I see both sides of the argument, but to me it's better to raise the fees than to put more taxes on the already 25% tax raise that we've had. And just one other thing, in terms of some of these boardwalk vendors getting a break on the prices, when we decided to start charging people for events in the city, each one of them, I was there for something else, each one of them pleaded their case with the city council to get the fee reduced. So if, you know, that needs to be addressed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Sorry to point at you.
Hello, Jay Brick, Long Beach. I want to ask some questions about the big picture, and I believe that is something that no one is talking about here. You have a combination of three things impacting our city and the summer. You have the lanes that were reduced from 3 to 2 on the southbound side of Austin Boulevard, which Long Beach didn't really have any say in or didn't fight to have that eliminated. So now in the summer, you're going to have much more traffic coming into the town, much more congestion coming into the city. Add that to the fees, add that to what you haven't spoken about tonight, which is the new parking fees you want to put in to pay off the Haverman problem. Now, I don't know if other people know this, but obviously you do. You're looking to generate fees of approximately anywhere from $61 to $64 million over 10 years with major parking increases. You want meters in the central business district, from Lafayette back to Monroe, and a block north and a block south of Park, where there'll be parking meters. For the major amount of revenue, you're asking $4 an hour.
Sir?
So,
May I interrupt? This is about the beach revenue.
so let's talk about that.
Okay.
So you have all these fees. Before the people ever get to the beach, you've got people driving in with problems this summer. You are now going to have larger fees, which is necessary for the beach, I understand, and parking fees. Now I see you truly parking Long Beach out of the market where people are going to go to Jones Beach. If you're going to look to institute this summer parking fees of what you're looking for at where people have to pay $4 an hour.
We have not discussed parking.
I know you haven't.
Okay.
I know you haven't. I'm presenting the big picture. Now, you may not see that big picture, but a lot of people that I've spoken to do see that big picture, and that's why I came tonight. I've never been here before, but I came to share that with you, that it seems to be, looking at the large problem that I see, why would people come to Long Beach to pay added fees plus parking fees? You're going to have to ask yourself that. If people are going to pay parking fees till 11 p.m. at night to eat at the restaurants, and people want to go to the beach, and they want to hang out, and they want to go to the restaurants, where are they going to go? Where are they going to park? They're going to be paying all that extra money. Maybe they'll go somewhere else. So these are things I believe that the town must look at. Because it seems logical to me, it seems logical to a group of people that I spoke with, and I said, I'll come to speak for them. So I represent maybe 30 or 40 people in Long Beach. So there you are. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Brand. See, it wasn't that scary, was it?
Yes,
Coming
sir,
out to talk.
Mr. Met?
Kyle Pace, Long Beach, New York. I'll try to make this quick. It's already approaching Scorsese flick length here.
Speak into the mic.
Yep. So if by the council's own admission earlier on, when we were talking about Haverman, we said that we're going to be mortgaging our kids' future for them to build properties along the boardwalk there. Have we considered leveraging zoning negotiations at all to sort of finance the beach? I'm not exactly sure what's like legally possible, but I feel like if they're going to be changing the landscape of this town, then they should contribute to making the beach remain clean and safe.
Can you speak into the mic?
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me better now?
Keep letting it drop.
Ah. I can repeat what I just said unless...
I can try to address it a little bit. So you were saying, why can't the zoning changes come with a caveat that those who develop contribute? That's exactly what's going to be in the zoning legislation, the community benefits policy. So developers who come in to build, right, whether it be on the oceanfront or elsewhere, right now it's just on the oceanfront in that Residence Business A district. Once we unveil the zoning legislation, developers will have to basically contribute to the community in order to be eligible for those benefits. So you're restricted unless you give something to the city, be it cash money, be it parkland, different concepts that give back to the community. So it's a good point, and that's what we're trying to address in the legislation.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like they should be paying for residents to go to the beach, not the other way around, us to finance their luxury condos. And then there's another untapped source of revenue in legalized cannabis. If we were to opt into that, this wouldn't be an argument to have it all. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the public? Judy, please. We're speaking about beach passes.
That was exactly my intent, okay?
I'm just trying to remind myself.
Okay, this might be naive, but I've thought about it for years and years and years. It goes back more than 2 or 3 councils, so nobody's fault. But we sell more than one resident family pass per family. I believe it's up to 3 now, if I'm correct, right? 3. So I think we all know that a lot of those resident beach passes don't go to residents. They go to friends and family who don't live in Long Beach. Can we not structure this so that, I get that every family is not 2 kids and 2 adults, but can we not structure it so that there is only 1 resident family pass sold per family, and then prorate the extra 4 kids, the extra grandma who lives there, whatever, but within that 1 family resident, rather than selling 3 sets of 4, which kind of go to the non-residents that could be paying a lot more.
City Manager Gaydon, do you want to take that?
We'll look into that.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So Mr. Naham? Okay.
Good evening, Joseph Naham, 700 Shore Road. I really appreciate you talking about this topic. And I wanted to mention that in town of Hempstead, I know that they have a take-on, take-off policy when it comes to sanitation. So we're looking at the budget for the Ocean Beach, and I'm here to actually audit our service of sanitation here. It's not very good. And I don't think that we get, look, morning sanitation crews go out and they clean the beach and it looks impeccable. But by the time it's sundown, we see all the garbage stacked up, if it's even lucky enough to be brought there. And I'm thinking, and Roy brought up some issues too that was important, like revenues coming from rental places on the boardwalk, and using that to address repairs on the boardwalk. And I know that sanitation is a little hairy because there's budgeting going towards the sanitation crews that only go on the beach, and there's budgeting that only goes to sanitation crews that do the boardwalk, garbage cans on the boardwalk. So maybe if we could work this little stuff out, we could work on making the beach cleaner and making it more economical and efficient, our sanitation program. And I also think that we should be increasing rent for the Riptides and Scoodin and all those places. I just want to add that. Thank you.
Right, yes.
Thank you, Joey.
Mr. Naham, sorry. You said a take-on, take-off policy. Just for my own edification, what would that look like? What are you suggesting?
So if you go down to Lido Beach, it's basically when you're on the beach, there aren't any garbage cans. What you brought on the beach, you take off the beach.
Yep, I've
like
heard of
every
that.
animal does.
I've heard of that. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Epstein? Yep. Right.
Hello, Nate Epstein.
Me, I
Hi.
said that.
Hi. If I recall, we're talking about a $1 million shortfall
Yes.
from expected. Okay. So my problem with things like raising fees for things that are used by the public is that it essentially is a tax. You know, people don't like to hear that their taxes might go up, but really it's just a tax that affects people who have less money. It's like a flat tax, basically. It's just, making them pay, something that's a higher percentage of what they have than somebody who might have a higher property value. So, and I also worry that doubling the cost of out-of-towners getting here is going to affect local businesses. I mean, ideally, it's a shame that the city has to run like a business, because ideally the beach would be free and the local businesses would get all the benefits of that. And I think that would be the safest option too. So anyway, look, we're coming off a pandemic. It's $1 million shortfall. I understand that sounds like a lot of money, but it seems a little premature to raise the prices the very next year, especially, and this is not going to be a popular opinion, we pay our police between 13 and $14 million a year and hardly bat an eye. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Delury?
Mike Delory, Long Beach. I want to thank you, Councilman Bendo, for bringing up that late fee, 4 o'clock. That will save lives. Because, and Councilman Lester, you being a lifeguard all your years, most drownings occur here in Long Beach when the lifeguards are off duty. All. Okay? So, giving people the ability that really can't afford a pass, or they come down at 5:30 and wait a half hour just to get on the beach, is beneficial. How you manage that and implement it, can be figured out. I think, and I want to thank all of you collectively. It's not an easy job that you have. I'm sure when City Manager Gaden came here, and the Controller Ina Resnick, there were budgeting issues that needed to be looked at thoroughly. And you can't do that in a year of the city this size. So, in closing, I want to thank Maria and Brian, who I've sat through with council members here, going through this Haverman negotiation and settlement, and there were a lot of hours spent. So just the general public knows this is not something that just came lightly. And I just want to thank all of you tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, Miss?
Hi, Ann Flomanhaft, Long Beach. I just wanted to say that I am against raising the prices of beach passes for this year. I think ultimately the beach should be free, and it's a resource you can't safeguard or gatekeep land, open land. And I think that there's also a lot of inflation that's happened that's really affected working families in the past year, and the outlets such as a beach should be not have to be compromised because of tight budgets and also inflation. And I think the City Council should consider doing alternative sources of revenue, such as opting in to retail dispensaries for cannabis sales. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gussler. Go. Okay.
Good evening, Jay Gussler, Long Beach. I really don't have a problem with the cost. I mean, it goes up every year. It's just, the way of things. And as Councilman Babendo pointed out, it's, if you break it down by the daily cost, it's still a bargain. The problem that I have, and again, I also pick up on what Councilman Babendo said, one way or another we're going to pay. We're either going to pay any user fee directly for buying a beach pass, or the shortfall for the beach is going to be passed off on the taxpayers no matter what. The problem that I do have, as I sat and listened tonight, is that it seems like we still are sloppy with our budgeting. When Ms. Gaden was hired, she was represented to the public to be a, for lack of a better term, a finance person, and yet I think that Councilmember Lester's concerns highlight that the quality of our budgeting practices have not improved under Ms. Gaden's watch. I don't understand why we can't budget more accurately. I'm accustomed to decades of shell games by prior administrations where it was all but impossible to get a handle on the cost of any given city service, beach, police, any given city service, because the cost was so parceled out and spread out throughout the budget that it makes it unduly difficult to really get a handle on what those costs are. I just think that we need more honesty and clarity in our budgeting practices. And again, just to pick up on what Councilmember Bendo said, yeah, it's the left pocket, right pocket. It's all the same amount of money. But I can tell you this, I know what's in my left pocket, I know what's in my right pocket, I know what's in my other pocket, I know what's in all my pockets. That's what budgeting is. It's not enough to say, this is what it's going to cost. We, the people footing the bill, should be able to discern what that cost is by looking at a document and not having to fish around in various different lines in order to get an idea of what the true cost is.
Thank you, Mr. Gussler, for your statement. And since you brought my name into it, when I came to this city and they brought me in for budgeting, the budgeting has improved. When I came to this city, your general fund balance was $284,000. Your overall fund balance for the city was a negative 6.9. This new audit coming out will show.
Million, 6.9
million. 6.9 million, 284,000. Thank you. 6.9 million. This new audit that's coming out shows that the fund balance in the general fund, which was 284,000, in fact now is a little over 6 million. The overall fund balance for the entire city is 36 million. Most of that money cannot be used for the beach because it is for capital projects and things like that. The budgeting that was done prior to me coming was called, which the state called this aggressive budgeting. When I came, I made it more conservative budgeting. You are absolutely correct to feel however you feel. However, how I feel is that since I've been here, the team that I have been doing everything they can do to turn the finances around and move in a positive direction. Our audits show that. The state shows that. Before I came, the budgets that were here, the finances that was here showed that Long Beach was #1 most fiscally stressed city in the entire state of New York. That means you were more fiscally stressed than the city of New York. Now that I've been here for 2 years, you're 1/10 of a way from not being on the list at all. So you're entitled to your opinion. I'm entitled to mine. Other residents are entitled to their opinion, but the truth lies where it lies. So I want to thank you very much for your comments. Thank you.
Mr. Gessler, I respectfully disagree with your comment about the budgeting for the that's been done by the city staff, and I think it's an affront to this staff. I think that it's not perfect, but it's come a long way and should be recognized. And I think that this council needs to remember it's a legislative body, and it needs to stick with legislating and leave the day-to-day operations to the staff and work in collaboration.
I think elected officials should take a more direct approach to overseeing the operations of the city, but we're free to disagree.
Thank you, Mr. Gessler. Any other comments from the public on this item? Okay, I think I have to close the hearing.
Yes.
Okay.
So on to the regular calendar. Item
3.
Well, hold on. No, item 1.
Come on.
Item 1 is an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Long Beach regarding...
Wait a
Beach
second.
Park.
Are we okay over here?
Sidebar?
We were told this meeting would not be closed. I have the emails. It would stay open, so at the next meeting, which is not in the middle of a vacation period, people could also come in and comment.
I was getting to that. I was going to say, I believe there's a motion that's to be entertained on this item to table for the...
I can't hear you.
I believe you guys had a motion to table this item. That's why I was going to suggest that after I called the calendar item.
Okay.
So, item 1 is an ordinance to amend the Code of Ordinances of the City of Long Beach regarding Ocean Beach Park. I believe we have a motion for this item.
Motion.
I'd like the
Dave,
motion.
can you just say that? I couldn't hear you very well.
We can't hear you.
Yeah.
We're
What?
We're going to motion to table.
We're going to motion to table this,
Yes.
so we
Yes.
don't vote on it tonight.
Right.
So I would like to motion to table this resolution.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Voting to table, item number 1. Councilmember Pashley.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
Yes.
Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes.
Okay. Item 2 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a settlement agreement between the City of Long Beach Commissioner of Buildings and Property Conservation Scott Kemmons and the City of Long Beach Zoning Board of Appeals Sinclair, Haverman, and Bel Air Building, LLC.
Okay. This is part of the city manager's report. And so, to the public. And do we have any questions from the public on this item? Okay.
Okay, next item. Item 3 is a resolution authorizing the city manager, the City Corporation Council to enter into a stipulation of settlement between the City of Long Beach Tax Assessor Raymond Flammer and Pacifica Building, LLC.
Good evening, all. Rich Barrios. So, as you saw in the city manager's report earlier, we're settling the Haberman litigation. This is a related litigation to some degree, right? A condition of the final settlement in Haberman required that we settle this matter as well. So, basically, this is a hybrid proceeding against the City of Long Beach that was commenced 2 years ago. It's been pending. There's been lots of motions back and forth on this. Because it's a condition of settlement in the Haberman matter, we discussed it with opposing counsel and reached a stipulation of settlement where they're going to withdraw with prejudice and we move on.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions from the council?
No.
I just want to be clear on one thing, Mr. Barrios. This was not in the letter of intent, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any questions from the public? Yes. Denise. I called you Legislator Ford last time, so.
Denise Ford, Long Beach. In regard to the settlement, I just have, with the opportunity where the state is allowing the city to borrow, to have a bond that would last 30 years rather than the normal 15 years. What would be the benefit to that? I mean, I equate this to if I was going to buy a house. I mean, if I didn't, I know the city has financial difficulties, but if you buy a house and you pay a mortgage for 30 years, the house could be $100,000. Based on the interest rate you ended up paying with the interest that you pay, the house may eventually cost you over 30 years, say $230,000. You know, but if you bought the house with a 15-year mortgage, you may be paying a higher mortgage, but overall, over 15 years, it would only cost you, the $100,000 house may only cost you $75,000. So my concern is that we talked about that for 30 years, we've had this hanging over our head. And I don't know whether or not it's absolutely prudent to immediately go after a 30-year bond because the overall cost, there's some of us here that are going to be 101 by the time this bond is, and I might still be alive, who knows. But I'm also thinking about the children, the cost, everything that babies that aren't even born yet are going to have to be paying for this. So I was just curious about that.
Brian, do you want to speak on this, please? Brian from.
And Denise, there's just one thing to keep in mind. All this does is give us the option to potentially go to dirt. Doesn't mean we're going to do it. We have to do the financial analysis to see what makes the most sense for the taxpayers. All this is doing is giving the option to do it. Otherwise, had that legislation not passed, the option wouldn't even been available.
Right, I was just asking why if you do that, like what
right,
would be
we
the
don't know if it's going to happen yet. The financial analysis has to be done to see, are you better off ripping off the Band-Aid in 15 years or looking out, because you're right, that you pay more in interest over the 30 years, but to your mortgage analysis, it's sort of like saying, can I afford $3,000 a month or $4,500 a month?
The council has actually been reviewed this preliminarily and found it prudent to explore the 30-year option, and that's why Brian from M3, if you could please come up and to review all of, because you've done all the work on this.
Yep. Sorry. That's correct, and I think everyone's kind of explained it as you would expect. It is the whole idea of just what you can afford over the next couple of years. Is it be more expensive with the interest over 30 years? Of course, but it does lower the kind of monthly or yearly impact. So it is something just gives us the optionality as we look forward into the future.
Okay. Thank you.
And Denise, one other thing, I've been advising my clients if they're looking for longer mortgages, it's a good idea right now because we're about to enter into a pretty heavy inflationary period. And money, if you get a fixed rate mortgage right now, remember you can always pay it off early. And I assume with the bond you can, is that correct? Donna, you can pay off a bond?
It depends on the negotiation of the
But you can
bonds.
renegotiate the bond. I mean, we did that with some of the others.
It depends on the negotiation of the bonds. Some bonds you can pay off early, some you can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but the point is that I think we're going to be quite surprised what interest rates are going to be like next year. So, in that particular case, yeah.
One small point of clarification. I did say it wasn't in the LOI, Councilman Lester, but just to be fair, they were pressing this during discussions since the discussions started. It just was not in the LOI, just to be fully disclosed.
Okay, so we're back to any other questions about item
3.
Item
No,
three. Item 3. Okay, no more questions?
Next item.
Yes, item.
Item 4 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to purchase a new ambulance for the city's fire department under a Sourcewell contract.
Commissioner Miller.
Good evening.
Good evening.
At this time, the Long Beach Fire Department is in need of replacing its primary ambulance, which is manned by our career force. As this office has discussed with the City Council before, our primary ambulance is in constant use, and this constant use puts an extreme amount of wear and tear on the engine. This specific ambulance is utilized for approximately 3,000 emergency medical alarms each year, in addition to all fire alarms it responds to. The ambulance committee, consisting of career and volunteer members, determined that a 2021 PL Custom Classic 4x4 Custom Classic type ambulance at a total cost of $329,929 would best serve the city of Long Beach and its residents, and request the city council to purchase such. Funding for the purchase is available in the fire department budget account for equipment leases. Coming with this ambulance also would be a power load stretcher, which would hopefully reduce injuries occurring from lifting stretchers.
Are there questions? No?
Just a couple questions.
No, wait. Just no. Okay. I'm sorry. Were you able to finish your comments, sir? Okay. Are there questions from the council?
I just have a couple of questions. We have 4 ambulances now?
Correct. Currently, we have 4. One's out of service. We have 3, 2 ALS and 1 BLS.
Okay, and this is an ALS?
This
correct?
will be ALS.
Right. And the one that's out of service, we're putting the new engine in that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And this ambulance is going to replace one of the 3 that are in service right now?
Correct.
Correct. And is there any way that we can repair that one too, so we have an extra?
Well, it's currently working. It's a 2003 model. We can use it as a backup as long as we possibly can.
Oh, okay, so it's working right now?
Yes.
So, because what you did with the engine, the new engine with the 3-year guarantee, or 5, I forget what, 3-year guarantee, I think it was, which seems to be a good thing for these. Now, on that particular one, I understand there were several bids.
There was, I believe, 3 bids.
3 bids. Can we possibly see them? We didn't even know that there were other bids.
I assume you should be able to.
Okay, all right. And we still went with the original people?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thanks.
You're talking about the engine?
Yes, the engine.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions from the council? Any questions from the public? Okay.
Next item. Okay. Item 5 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to purchase various chemicals on an as-needed basis for the water purification plant from the lowest responsible bidders.
Good evening, everyone. Joe Fabrizio, Commissioner of Public Works.
Good evening.
Good evening. There were 2 bids received in the Office of Purchasing on Thursday, March 31st, 2022 at 11 a.m. for the purchase of aluminum sulfate liquid and hydrated lime bulk for the water purification plant. The low bidder on the aluminum sulfate liquid was Chemtrade Chemicals at $1.38 per gallon. The estimated annual usage is 48,000 gallons. Therefore, the annual cost is approximately $66,240. The previous unit price was $1.03 per gallon, so it's approximately 38% increase. And the previous and aluminum sulfate is basically utilized for settling out iron in the open air containment basins at the water plant. It's part of the treatment process. The low bidder on the hydrated lime bulk was Graymont at $210.88 per ton. The estimated annual usage is 100 tons, so the cost to the city is approximately $21,088 annually. The previous price was $208 per ton, and it's from the same vendor. Hydrated limes used in the treatment process basically to raise the pH of water at the plant. Funding's available in their contracted services line in their budget, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions from the council on this item? Okay, seeing no questions. Any questions from the public? Okay.
Item 6 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to purchase sodium hypochlorite from the lowest responsible bidder.
This is mine as well. There were 5 bids received in purchasing on Thursday, March 31st, 2022 at 11 a.m. for the purchase of sodium hypochlorite at the Water Pollution Control Plant. The low bidder was Twin County Swimming Pool Maintenance and Supply Company at $1.29 per gallon. The bid was based on utilizing 70,000 gallons per year, which equates to $90,300 annually. The current vendor is JCI Jones. Their unit price is 95 cents a gallon. Funding is available in the Water Pollution Control Contracted Services budget line for this chemical. Sodium hypochlorite is essentially used as a disinfectant in the treatment process at the Water Pollution Control Plant. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them as well.
Any questions from the council? Any questions from the public on this item? Okay.
Item 7 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract for masonry work at various locations throughout the city of Long Beach on an as-needed basis with the lowest responsible bidder.
On April 7, 2022, 4 bids were received in the Public Works Department for the city's masonry work various locations project. The low bidder was Castle Industries at $201,500. There were 3 other bidders. One was Stasi Industries at $289,700. The third was HTC Landscaping at $547,640, and the fourth was Capital Projects Inc. at $655,599. This contract is basically utilized to perform masonry work at various locations on public streets. For example, we just did all the brickwork on National Boulevard south of Park on the east and west side, utilizing this contractor, and we use them to do, again, various masonry work, curbs, sidewalks around the city. They're a reputable contractor who currently hold this contract. We've worked with them for many years, and funding's available in the upcoming operating budget for the 2023 fiscal year. Is there any questions?
Mr. Lester?
Yes. Joe, last year, we settled a lawsuit for little bumps on the sidewalk ramp. Do you remember that? They put the bumps out for blind people to be able to tell.
Yeah, they're called truncated dome inserts.
Right. And, you know, somebody had fallen a few years ago. They sued. We settled. Then somebody else fell, same spot, and they sued, and, you know, we had to settle. Would this company be doing those?
If it's a handicap ramp on a public street, yes. And they don't use the ones that you're referring to are, they're like 1-by-1 tiles that we used to use, and the DOT recommended probably like 10 years ago. They really don't work well. They actually tend to shatter when they freeze, if a car goes over them or something like that. So we don't use that style if it's the one you're referring to. Now they use more of a mat that they actually set inside the concrete. If it's the one you're referring to, I don't believe we even use those anymore.
I don't remember. All I know is that it happened twice. And,
it's probably that type which we no longer utilize.
Okay, good. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Any questions from the public on this item? Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 8 is resolution authorizing the city manager to purchase an interoperable video management and integrated surveillance system through New York State Office of General Services contracts.
Excuse me, Legislator Ford.
No, that's not it.
That's not it.
Not it.
I'm sorry. Okay. Sorry about that.
Sorry. Good night.
No, we thought the last item, but it's for publication only.
Yep.
The last item. At that point, we'll be asking you.
Just like, what the heck?
Okay, Commissioner
Have a
Walsh.
good night.
Commissioner Walsh. Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
So this item is for our closed-circuit television network. It basically brings together already approved projects and already funded projects for what's remainder of the rec center, what is some monies that have been allocated out of the Ocean Beach Park budget from their the money that was gifted to the city, as well as a capital project for closed-circuit television. It's going to take all of our closed-circuit television feeds kind of bring them all together so that they can all be viewed in one centralized location. Right now, we have multiple locations in multiple areas where these are up. Some of them are not monitored at all. We have locations in City Hall, we have locations at the police department, we have locations at the railroad. So everything's going to be brought together into one. It's also going to be modernizing all of the cameras, the servers, and the communications back to the centralized location, which will be at police headquarters. The current method that we're doing uses microwave antenna technology so that it's much less expensive than having to run cable or fiber optic cable or any sort of CAD 6, CAD 5, which have distance limitations to them. The total cost for this portion of the project is $232,843.70. There's additional portions of this project which are not in front of you right now, which will come at a later date, which will be to modernize all of the cameras and the ability to view the cameras in the Long Island Railroad facility, as well as access controls to certain doors in the City Hall complex, as well as the railroad parking lot.
Okay. I know the council had a lot of questions last week on this item, and that you answered. Thank you. For my sake, could you please remind me of the length of this phase of the project? When will this work be start and completion?
So it's tough to say when the work is going to be completed because there are a lot of supply chain problems right now. Okay. As soon as we are able to get this approved, we'll be cutting POs to get the items ordered. The vendor that we chose is a vendor, Versig. They're also the vendor that Nassau County uses as well. They have many, many decades of servicing public entities. So, and I have a relationship with them when I was in the county. I'm very glad that we were able to get them off state bid. So this phase probably won't be fully completed for the better part of a year, if not a little bit longer than that, but which won't mean we don't start the other phases because things can move along in a coordinated fashion as opposed to one after the other after the other.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions from the council? Mr. Bendo?
So I just want to confirm that should the need arise in an emergency situation where we activate the Emergency Operations Center, all those feeds can also be picked up in the Emergency Operations Center?
So everything that I'm trying to do now is put everything on a cloud base where we're actually I should be able to see them on my phone. All of the executive members of should be able to put it on their phone so they can see it, as well as do playback and securing a video as well. So yes, we'll be able to see it in OEM. If I wanted to, I could log in, put the application on the city manager's desktop, and we could do it from her office as well if we wanted to.
Okay. Then does this include, I'm assuming there's some training that will be necessary for some of the operators. Does this include that, or is that?
So everything that we purchase from this particular vendor, Versig, we're probably looking at what's called Milestone, which is the software we're probably going to use for our feeds and for our management of our video. So they would train us on that. It's included. And the only people who would really need the training are the people in the police department that would be involved in playing back, securing the video, and things like that. We're also trying to integrate this into our discovery process for ourselves and stuff like that, so that the people downstairs in our records department would also be trained on how to lock in and retrieve video as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Commissioner Walsh?
Yes.
I noticed that money is being taken for this is found in the rec center line and the lifeguard line and stuff like that. How would this go? Would these actually be helping the lifeguards, or is it on the boardwalk?
So the money that you see actually for the rec center, that money is allocated already for a project of this type in the rec center. We're merging it into this one global project, if you will, under one management, which is coming out of the police department. The lifeguard monies came out of a lifeguard line. I actually have to take about $60,000 of police department capital project money to supplement the lifeguards in order to get beach cameras up so that they'll be able to view on the beach side the conditions on the beach, the conditions in the water, and the size of the crowd. The lifeguards are looking for that in their location. So they'll be able to view that there as well. But the cost of that project is expensive. Just to give you a quick reason why, you can't run wires there. If you did, it would quadruple the price of this item. So we're doing what's called SICLUs. They're microwave transmitters and receivers that'll push the video feed around. We're actually going to seek permission to get on the roof of some of the larger complexes down there so we can fire a beam of data back to headquarters here and view it. So that $50,000 is less than half of the money that the beach needed just to get up the cameras on the
I'm just
on the beach
curious on
side.
how it would actually operate. Would it, would the lifeguards, for example, have the ability to watch the water after hours?
We are going to give them the ability to view and play back from lifeguard headquarters, yes.
On all the beaches or only?
Wherever their cameras are. So everything's going to be permissions-based, so the lifeguards will be able to see the lifeguard cameras, the police department will be able to see everything. City Hall, if they wanted to see the City Hall stairwells, will be able to see City Hall stairwells. So everything's going to be permissions-based based on the milestone application.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any questions from the public on this item? Mr. Epstein?
Hey, respectfully, how will this help the people of Long Beach? How will having cameras on the boardwalk, in the police station, and here?
Well, when a crime is committed and nobody's there to see it, the cameras will pick it up and we'll be able to identify people who commit crime and arrest them. That's one great way that we'll be able to use it.
After the fact. I'm sorry, how much violent crime do we have here in Long Beach? Like, relatively pretty safe, right? I mean, this is a quarter of the budget of the shortfall we're talking about for the beach revenue.
I would say that one violent crime is one violent crime too many, so I would not say that any crime is an acceptable level to me. I think that's a misnomer saying that there's no violent crime in this city. There's violent crimes in this city that happen all too frequently. We had our first murder in 4 years this year that we're working diligently to actually solve. And one of the solutions that we're putting in place at that location is the installation of an additional 12 cameras so we can monitor the location and make sure that nothing bad is happening there as well. So this is a technology that we use across the state, across the county, and I not only welcome it, I encourage to get a larger and larger platform of cameras.
Okay. And I understand we had our first murder in 4 years. I would say that still keeps us relatively safe. I just think that these kinds of budget issues should be scrutinized to the same degree that we scrutinize a lot of the social services in this town, the little $10,000, $20,000 amounts of cash we throw around. I don't think we should just accept a $283,000 surveillance system without asking questions.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Gaden?
I want to address your statement about the $10,000 or $20,000 we just throw around. Those were grant funds. Those nonprofit organizations applied with the city to receive those monies. That was not monies that came out of the city budget. Those were grant funds by CDBG, and CDBG gets their money from HUD.
The other thing I'd like to say, City Manager Gaden, is that right now we have a proliferation of something as simple as graffiti in this town. Very, very, very difficult to catch a graffiti artist causing $50,000 in damage just to public property alone. These cameras are going to help us. They're up on the boardwalk. They're going to be on the railroad station. They're going to be in places where police officers and it would be much less effective and efficient for us to put a police officer in every corner, in every stairwell of the railroad. There's a concept in SEPTED, which is crime prevention through environmental design. And one of the things that they say is where you create the opportunity not only for natural surveillance, but can actually show the public that they are being surveilled, people who have the idea of committing a crime will be deterred from that. So as opposed to any idea of surveilling the public, this is a deterrent to people because they're going to know these aren't going to be surreptitious cameras. These cameras are going to be in plain view, and you're going to know that you're going to be surveilled. All you have to do is look up.
Okay, Mr. Epstein, did you have more questions?
I had a response to Ms. Gaden's comment.
Okay.
I understand that was grant money. My point wasn't that it's too much. My point was that it's not enough. I mean, if the amounts of money that we're talking about for surveillance could be put into programs that help people, that also might prevent violent crime. And it might be a less totalitarian sounding way of doing it. I mean, no offense, I feel bad for the person who was murdered, but I don't think one murder in 4 years warrants having a camera in every stairwell in the Long Island Railroad. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Epstein.
Commissioner Walsh, I'm sorry, one question.
Yes.
You were talking about the microwave, but rather than the cabling, but we're buying 10,000 feet of cabling. What is that cabling for?
Not in this project, or not? Oh, that cabling? Oh, yes. So that cabling is for the wiring in places where they're hardwired cameras. So the cameras have to report back to a centralized location so that they can actually get their signal gathered, if you will, to a server. Then from there, it's going to be beamed back to headquarters. The greatest expense would be on the boardwalk. You're going to beam from camera to camera to camera, and then back to headquarters. We don't have to do any of that. Okay. The cost of cabling that, I asked for just a ballpark spitball, how much would it cost to do all that cabling? He said, if you can get permissions from all the utilities to use their poles and everything else, you're looking at about $1.5 million just for the cabling. Yeah. So these microwave antennas are very efficient as well.
It's a great idea. I just was wondering what the 10,000 Cat 6
Yeah, that's all internal wiring for hardwired cameras that are already, for the most part, have the wires. They were going to re-pull new wires for the new cabling. Okay. One thing I would like to just leave the City Council with, while I appreciate what Mr. Epstein was saying, I don't think you do one at the exclusion of the other. I'm all for social services and for giving people the opportunity to prevent crime from happening from the beginning, but not at the exclusion of another program that also helps.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Met, did you have a question? I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Kyle?
Thank you. Yeah, Kyle Pace, Long Beach,
Keep
New York.
the mic up.
No hitter right now, too, I think, by the way, that we're missing. Yeah, I think. Full disclosure, I work in cybersecurity, kind of. I used to manage a security team. We used to break into systems like these all the time. I guess I'm wondering, first off, like, have we gone into the security measures that we're going to be taking for, like, the average, I don't want to say beat cop, but, for lack of a better term on my end, as to how they're going to be getting into the system, what they're going to be watching it on? Like, I want to make sure that they're not going to be able to, like...
The average beat cop would not be accessing this. This is restricted to our desk officers, meaning our supervisors, and the access to any of the video would be by permissions base only. So it would be the executive team or our detectives investigating a crime. They're not used by cops to sit there and stare at.
Cool. And is there going to be an audit for that? Like, would I be able to tell if, let's say, somebody was misusing these systems outside of work? Like, this kind of thing happens quite frequently.
I don't see how anybody would be able to access it, but all of it would have audit trail. So anybody who logs into the system, it's recorded. It will be recorded, and that's one of the features of Milestone. So, for example, we used Milestone in the Nassau County Police Department when I was there, and the female cells had cameras on them. And supervisors were allowed to look at the female cells for protection. It's required by state departments of corrections. But every time you look at a female cell, somebody was notified that you're looking at the female cell. So those types of protections would be in place. Not necessarily notifying at the time, but
So is it auditable by the public? Like, if I wanted, do I have to FOIL for this information? Like, how is this a website I can go to see that, this kind of stuff was looked into?
So that would be considered public safety exception. You wouldn't be able to see when we're accessing and what we're accessing because that would give you an idea of what our investigations would be like. So would be public safety exception.
But can you use the microphone, Kyle, please?
Sorry, I guess I'm wondering how would we know these systems are being abused if we're not making this information public?
So that would be something that at the time, if it was foiled, our legal team would evaluate whether or not you would be able to get access to that, and a determination would be made at that. Speaking in a hypothetical is going to be too difficult for me to answer on a specific basis, but if there was a FOIL request made for particular, like, here's an example. A defense attorney, if somebody gets arrested and there's video of that person entering the station house in processing and then going into the cell, all of that gets turned over. Like, they don't even have to ask, we just give it right away. So there are a lot of checks and balances in these types of things. So any other camera that's out there is a camera in the public space, and there's no right to or expectation of privacy walking down the boardwalk in a public space. If you can be viewed by the public, you can put a camera there. Okay?
Yeah, final thing. So then, final thing then, I guess the point is really, unless there is a reason to investigate this, there is no plan right now to like periodically audit this information.
I don't know what you mean by audit.
Like,
I want everybody to hear. I'm not quite sure what you mean by audit, but the cameras in the public space, we will look at, you know, like during the summer months, we turn on the cameras, we're watching the cameras on the boardwalk. At nighttime, we're watching the cameras on the boardwalk. We've actually watched the cameras on the boardwalk, saw a man walking last year down the boardwalk, and get jumped, and we dispatched our police officers and were able to make an arrest immediately because we happened to be looking at the cameras at the time. So that's the type of stuff we do. Now, that's not considered private information or information that you're not allowed to gather. So if you wanted to go outside of your house and you wanted to put cameras up and record all around your house and everything visible from a public space or your private property out into the public space, you could do that. As a matter of fact, if it's visible on someone's private property and you were standing in your house and you put a camera out and were videoing someone's private house, you could do that too. So it's when it's out and open in public view, it's not considered private, if you understand what I'm saying. All public view cameras. None of them are in bathrooms or locker rooms or any place where there's an expectations of privacy.
Okay.
Okay?
Kyle, thank you, Kyle. Mr. Naham.
Joe Naham, Long Beach. Are the microwave antennas that are going to be installed if we're not using hardwire? Do we know what the effects are? Because I know the word beaming was used.
I'll clarify that. So it would be equivalent to the same thing as a fire department or police department radio. It's a type of radio. That's a microwave also. Microwave is just basically, it's a frequency of light. People think of it as a microwave in their house. It's not really the same as a microwave in your house. That's 2,000 watts. You're talking about 1 watt or 2 watts. You could put this thing in your mouth and sit there for an hour and you wouldn't even know what's in your mouth. But it's a radio frequency that is the same. It's actually less power than we use on our handheld radios that are in use all over the city. You could go out and buy a handheld radio with more wattage than we're actually doing. It's just focused so that it gets from one point to, it's point to point, so there's no radiation that comes off of it in any other direction. It's literally like a laser beam. It's actually in the spectrum of light, so that laser beam goes from one point to the next, and if you held up a piece of paper, you could block it, which is why it has to be clear line of sight. Oh, a cell phone. If you held a cell phone to your head for 40 hours, it'd be more dangerous than this thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Thank you. Good question.
Are there any other questions from the public on this item? Okay.
Item 9 is a resolution authorizing the city manager and the city controller to transfer funds within the 2021-22 budget.
Comptroller Resnick.
Ina, is your mic on?
Hello?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening again. And this item has to do with the fact that we're entering the last couple of months of our fiscal year. At that point, majority of the funds in the budget are already used up. So in some cases, we need to reallocate between different lines. When this city council votes on the budget and adopts it, it gives me an authority to spend up to the budget. So if one of the departments need something to buy a purchase order for repair or something, not necessarily an emergency, but even in a general course of business, in a regular course of business, I have no authority to authorize these expenses. So I have to go back to the council and ask them to authorize the transfers. What this will do, it will allow me to sign off on expenses after performing transfers before having authorization by the city council. I'd like to also point out that we implemented procedures last year where we are not allowing any expenses over the budget unless department has identified accounts within their budget that have available funds, if that makes sense, right? So let's say if it's a recreation department and they need money in the maintenance line, but have excess money in a contracted services line, they would ask me to move money from one line to another, from one account to another. So there is a control that the budget will never be overspent. Once this similar resolution was approved last year, an email went to all city employees that stated that this is how this will be operationalized. If you need money, if you need extra money for a certain purchase or service, departments need to identify where this funding is coming from. And also, we will be reporting on all the transfers as they go on, and they go on until audits are issued, because if the audit is not finalized until January of the following year, and we receive an invoice and have to transfer funds to cover this invoice, the transfers will continue to occur. So we post all transfer reports on the website and show them to the City Council.
So one of the things I want to say, based on Mr. Gussler's statement, in these budgets, when we do the transfers between line items, we are not adding to the budgets. This is where, in a budget, it is an estimate of what the line item will be. When the line item is over, the department head goes within their own budget and say, I want to transfer from this line item. One, for example, was because the cost of gasoline went up. So we needed additional monies in gasoline, and so that we transferred money from one line item to another. This has no effect on the bottom line of the budget. None whatsoever. We're not increasing revenues to the budget. We're not increasing expenses. We're just doing transfers. What happens typically is any transfer that's over $1,500 comes to the council as we are transferring from one line item to another. But at the end of the fiscal year, we do several transfers to put things into, to have them closer, the budget to be closer to actual, which does help us in future budgets, that we identify what is closer in the actual to budget in the future. And then at the end, when we're done, the council and the public can see all of the items that we transferred. Again, these transfers have no effect on the bottom line of the budget. I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the council?
Yes. Donna, these transfers have no upper limit? No upper limit.
Upper limit, it could be higher than.
That is correct.
All right, thanks.
Any questions from the public on this item? Okay.
Item 10 is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a joint promotion agreement with the Metropolitan Transportation Authority for the MTA Away Package.
This resolution basically formalizes the agreement between the Long Island Railroad and the city for, I think the typo there, Dave, is the MTA Getaway Package. This is the beach pass agreement that we share with the MTA, whereby they sell round-trip railroad fare and a voucher as part of a getaway package. The voucher is then exchanged on the boardwalk for a beach pass. We bill the MTA for the amount of vouchers that we collect, and they send us a check, and they do all the work. I mean, they market it, they advertise it, they make the push, and essentially what we do is we honor those people that come to the beach from the city with a $12 beach pass. which is the equivalent of a non-resident economy rate. And obviously, it's promoted by our local businesses. We try to provide, with the voucher, bus transportation if somebody gets off the train and wants to go to a beach that's not within walking distance, and help spread out some of the crowd and spread them across town as well.
Any questions from the council?
Yeah, Joe, so do you know how the MTA promotes it? Is it like in the cars, on...
In the cars, at Penn Station, and then obviously on their websites, in their machines. Part of the issue that we had is the amount of lead time they need. It takes months for them to program everything into their systems in order to make this available by Memorial Day weekend.
Okay, but we're targeted with tonight.
Yeah, no, we're on point. In fact, I mean, it took a little bit longer, and Mr. Berrios can probably speak to it a little bit better than I, but where this used to be almost like a paragraph agreement with the Long Island Railroad, it is now, I guess, a little bit more in-depth legal document with the MTA, but everything has been, Donna and myself began negotiations or conversations. It wasn't really much of a negotiation in early January with it because they wanted to be ahead of it. They've taken a beating the last couple of years, obviously, with COVID. We didn't have the getaway package available until July last year. So from both of our perspectives, we wanted it up and ready to go by Memorial Day weekend.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner Brand's 100% correct. The thing that changed was that the Long Island Railroad handled the agreement previously, and now the MTA formally handles the agreement, so there's just a lot more red tape to deal with and a lot more paper, unfortunately. So.
That's why we have attorneys. Joe, I'm sorry. Okay. Joe, I have a question on the trolley. The trolley works 7 days a week during the summer?
Yeah. It's part of transportation. I'll give you what I know from a recreation standpoint, but go ahead. I don't know much about the trolley. You're talking about the bus trolley that drives throughout town?
The trolley that brings them to the beach.
Well, it's not just the trolley. It's the buses in general, where if they were to get off of the train with a getaway package beach pass voucher, they can get on any one of the buses to get around town.
Okay, and so those are running. I just don't like the idea that we're obligating ourselves to provide a trolley with this package.
No, it's not an additional trolley.
It's not.
It's the regular bus service.
But are you suggesting we modify the resolution? Because it does say trolley in there. Would you like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to just change that to trolley or bus to and from.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
So what are we changing, trolley to?
Trolley,
slash
so it says
bus.
trolley or bus.
Oh,
I just.
The fourth paragraph.
Yeah, no, I see.
You have it, Dave?
Yep, so we're changing trolley to trolley or bus, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, hold on one second. I'm sorry, do we have a second?
Yes.
I did.
You did?
Okay.
Voting, Councilmember Postlewaite,
Yes.
Councilmember Lester,
Yes.
Councilmember Bendo,
Yes.
Vice President Treston,
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes. Are there any more questions from the council?
No.
Seeing none, are there any questions from the public on this item? Okay.
Where is it? Item 11 is a resolution authorizing publication of the general summary of the capital improvement program for the next 5 years and authorizing publication of the general summary of the proposed budget for the year July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023, and notice of public hearings thereon. This item is for publication only. The hearings will be as follows. Capital Improvement Program, May 17th at 7 p.m. Budget public hearings, May 3rd and 17th at 7 p.m., and work sessions on the budget, April 26th and May 10th at 7 p.m. Item 12 is a...
Wait, I'm sorry, Dave. Can we skip to item number 13 now?
You want me to call that out of order? Okay. that's
Yes, please.
Publication only. Item 13 was added by unanimous consent as a resolution authorizing publication for hearing of an ordinance authorizing financing for the construction and reconstruction of improvements to the city's wastewater treatment plant, appropriating $1,600,000 for such purpose and authorizing the issuance of up to $1,600,000 bonds to finance said appropriation. This item is for publication only. A hearing will be held May 3rd at 7 p.m.
Okay.
Circling back to item 12, the resolution authorizing the city council to have confidential correspondence prepared on behalf of the city council and to have such correspondence delivered to certain persons known to the council regarding pending litigation.
Good evening, all. I know we've been here for a long time. It is my recommendation, because this is referencing pending litigation, that someone make a motion to enter into executive session to discuss the substance of this resolution.
I'll make a motion to go into
executive
executive session.
Okay, Liz has offered a motion. Do we have a second?
And that's to go into executive session for pending litigation?
Correct.
Okay.
I second.
Okay, at this time...
Voting?
Oh, we have to vote.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
hold on. Councilmember Postoli.
Yes.
Councilmember Lester.
No.
Councilmember Bendo.
Yes.
Vice President Treston.
Yes.
President McGinnis.
Yes.
Okay. We are in executive session. To the folks who are watching online, this stream is going to end, and I'm going to post a new stream that'll be called City Council Meeting 4/19/22 Part 2, which will be scheduled to start within the next 15 minutes.
Now would be a good time to take a potty break.
Just say.
What?
That would be a good time to take a potty break.
Yeah.